Tom Martin, and welcome to another episode of the San Francisco Conservative, a new podcast series featuring my dear friend, David Parker, author of Income and Wealth, and most recently, a San Francisco Conservative, joining us, of course, from San Francisco. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing today, Tom?
I'm doing well. Thank you, sir.
That's
it's
good.
Great to see you. As some of you who've maybe listened to other episodes probably know, I'm a lifelong journalist. I worked for CBS News in New York with Charles Kuralt and even with Walter Cronkite briefly, and CNN and with Diane Sawyer at Good Morning America. I love interviewing interesting people, which is exactly why I'm here. And however good a job journalists may do. Again, thinking of my father, who was one of the editors who started USA Today, which has made quite an impact. However good a job journalists do, it's sort of the news of the day. And so what's missing, of course, is historical context. And David's books, Income and Wealth and a San Francisco Conservative, are excellent in that regard. And they're the work not of somebody who's up in an ivory tower, an academic, not in touch with the real world, but really, David is in the trenches, learning and growing, and still active as an entrepreneur and investor for many, many decades. So let's just jump right into it. Would that be okay, David?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So what
I
I
like
was
the
thinking,
introduction.
Very
Nice introduction.
Thank you.
I'm glad I'm being interviewed by somebody who knows what he's talking about. That's good.
I'm still learning. That's why I love our conversations. I've never stopped learning. But it's interesting, I am kind of a political news junkie after all these years, and I'll confess, maybe my tastes are a little more liberal, or, I know we're talking about these labels, but primary season is underway. We're headed towards a midterm election. A lot of people saying Republicans may regain the House and the Senate and so on. We'll see how it all works out. But all of this political news has me thinking, and I'm really curious, David, what you would say is, how would you define one of our elected representatives doing a great job? Seems like they're catering to polls and tricks and all kinds of things, and that so many of these elected representatives have lost sight of what doing a great job for the public really means.
That's a very good question, because what they're doing is the opposite. They're not doing a great job. It's as if they have no understanding of what this nation was founded, the principles this nation was founded on, and what the founding fathers were thinking when they wrote the Constitution, what they were thinking when they fought a Revolutionary War. There's no connection in today's politics or today's government with that, which made it all possible, what our founding fathers gave us. Thomas Jefferson said at the beginning of the Revolutionary War, we're going to have something that does not exist anywhere in the world. We will not have a king or a queen. We will have a very limited government, so small you won't even be able to see it. You are really going to be on your own. We're providing you maximum social, political, economic freedom. But the flip side is maximum individual responsibility. So you might not like all this. And if you don't, I'm telling you now to go.
Yeah.
And thousands of people fled. Jefferson, you're out of your mind. You guys are completely out of your mind. You're going to fight the biggest military in Europe. You don't even have an army. You're out of your mind. And people fled. So we are a great nation just from that act of getting ourselves together and fighting for what I just said.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Not long ago, my daughter, Lindsay, invited us to meet her in New York City and go to Christie's auction house. They had a big Andy Warhol painting for sale, set a record and so on. But one of the paintings there, they had classical artists as well, Monet and so on. I forget the name of the artist who painted George Washington crossing the Delaware, but it's the famous painting standing up in the little rowboat and so on. And it just seemed to me that at that time, our leaders and even our citizens, our soldiers, were fired up with big vision. They just imagined what America could be. And I just can't help but wonder, does anyone look at our nation that way anymore? It seems like that's a lost emotion,
Yeah. that emotion was captured maybe in World War II. I disagree with lots of what Franklin Roosevelt said, but he led the nation during the war in a positive, in a great way, actually. And we were fighting for a great cause. And people on left and right and in the middle all put it down. Even in France, which is really split on stuff, but the underground was made of people from the left and the right. And everybody put their politics down for a moment. Maybe they should put their politics down forever. And just go back and just read the founding fathers a little bit. Yeah. Madison is one of the chief writers of the Constitution. He had to be convinced to write the Constitution. He says, why are we doing this? I don't see any need for government. Why we have a government? I mean, we have the market as nature itself. Natural law is what the Constitution, John Locke, is all about. It's what we believe. We've all read Adam Smith. Why are we even having a government? And he was convinced, okay, not all men are angels. That was the final argument. That's Madison. Yeah, Federalist 51. He says, okay, we have to have a government. And if we have a government, somebody better guard the guard. And so we better break that into 3 branches. So, and each branch has to approve everything each one does. So no dictatorships. It's impossible to have a dictatorship. And with 3 branches, it makes it impossible even to pass a law. One branch is going to say no for some reason. So you really have to have a consensus if you want to pass something. So our nation is in gridlock. It was designed to be in gridlock. It's a good sign. No other country in the world has gridlock. Every other country has a party that's so populist or a dictator that's so in control, they don't have to think about it. We just can't ram laws down. Yeah.
No, it's interesting.
So I like that about our nation, and that's not part of the political discussion.
Yeah. I just wanted to throw in, if any of you are joining us midstream here, watching or listening, this is a San Francisco Conservative, the new podcast series featuring yours truly, Tom Martin, asking questions. I hope they're good questions. I'm a lifelong journalist and very curious about these matters. And the wisdom you're hearing is from my friend David Parker, who's the author of Income and Wealth and a San Francisco Conservative. And I want to ask about sort of the other side of the equation. We've talked about, kind of restoring that sense of purpose and reconnecting our elected representatives with the Constitution. What's a good citizen these days? I mean, what should we all be doing as far as, demanding from our elected representatives?
We should be demanding nothing, and they should be offering nothing. The great insight of Adam Smith, and also 18th century and the 20th century, an economist named F.A. Hayek. He got a Nobel Prize for reiterating it in a more modern text. If we all pursue our life, our interests, to support ourselves, support our family, learn a career, get an education, everything will come into place on its own, as if led by an invisible hand. And what evolves will be much better than anything that can be done by design. I like to say that's natural law. I like to say we're a species in nature. And why don't we look to nature for a guide? There are no species where a leader or a group tells others what to do. It may look that way, but it's not. A beehive is not a colony, it's not a community where everybody's talking about what we should do. Some bees do this, some bees do that. Some guard the queen, some look for a new site for a nest. Some mostly are getting material for honey. Everybody knows what to do. When things go wrong, they also know what to do without anybody telling anybody anything. And that's how it is for all species. Who are we to think that we can plan nature better than nature planned for us?
Right. No,
I feel very strongly about that.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. It's funny. that famous quotation from John F. Kennedy comes to mind: ask not what your country can do for you. And then I think of the progressives: free daycare for everyone, free unlimited medical care. Like you said, your father walking into the hospital saying, give me the best care, I don't care what it costs. Like we have our elected representatives are offering that now, and the consequences are going to catch up with it if they haven't started to already.
You mentioned my father. He said that, and he was his whole life. He kind of watched how much he spent for things. He bargained for a car. He bargained for a house. He bargained at the restaurant. How much tip should I give you? He walks into the hospital, which is very expensive. He says, I don't care what it costs. I want the best service. He's not paying for it. It was under Medicare. That right there, that's a very shrewd person is completely drops his guard, completely indifferent to something that's really important like healthcare. Just, yeah. Education could be the same thing. We don't care what it costs. Education is so important, the price should not be an issue. And we have doubled and tripled the cost of education, and every dollar up, a certain amount of points, test scores have dropped since 1970 and have stayed way low, have not come back.
Yeah.
Sloppiness with money, sloppiness with ideas.
Yeah. No, it's interesting with, again, with the midterm elections coming up in November, at the time we record this. I'm and thinking back to, when I covered politics in Washington, there's sort of the standard issues, the predictable issues that they say voters vote on. As James Carville told Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid. So it's, the price of gasoline, the inflation rate and so on. Are there other issues that you hope our voters will keep in mind? I mean, the deficit, and, I'm just curious how you look at it, because they tend to look at the predictable things and maybe some things that they should be looking at.
My sense of politicians is they're saying what they think their voters at the moment want to hear. So I don't follow politics closely because I know that they're saying what they think their voters want to hear. So my little rule is never listen to a politician when he's running for office. Listen to him or her when they're not running for office, when they say something in a serious discussion, but not when they're running for office, because they want to win so bad. And the closer they get, and if they can taste the victory, then they're really saying what they think the voters want to hear.
Right. I guess as the old joke goes, how can you tell when a politician is lying, right?
Yeah.
When their mouth moves or when their lips move. So, anyway.
But even the polls are a proof that even the audiences or the voters are not quite listening. In 2016, on the eve of the election, some polls had Hillary 90% victory on the eve. All polls had a major landslide for Hillary, and she lost because people lie in the polls.
Yeah,
they don't want to tell their friends they're voting for Trump or something.
Yeah, no,
and so the voters lie and the politicians lie, and nobody is talking about the principles of the founding fathers. Some of the Supreme Court justices do, and they're considered as just old fogies for doing that. No, it's time to progress from progressivism. Yeah. Is my new expression I invented yesterday.
Progress from progressivism, yes.
Yes, we move forward, which means go back.
Right.
When you're at a pinnacle, the Constitution is a pinnacle political document. A step forward, a step in any direction is a step down. Down means back, in this case, to aristocracy, to Plato's Republic, to the very best people doing their best as society coming together with their best people to solve our problems and spend what's necessary. And that's not how life works.
Yeah. Yeah. I love great quotations, and I'm embarrassed that I can't remember who said this. I think it was one of our presidents, or perhaps probably one of our founding fathers, but it said, democracy is, amazing, miraculous, if we can keep it, or democracy is our best, God's best creation, if we can keep it.
Very profound. That was Benjamin Franklin walking out of the Philadelphia Convention, and some voter says, well, what did you give us? Well, we gave you a democracy. If you can keep it, then you're probably not going to be able to keep it.
Amazing.
He may not have said that, but I'm throwing that in there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Quite a story. Well, I can't think of a better note to end on. So thank you, David. It's always great to speak with you. And I want to encourage all of you to pick up copies of David's books, Income and Wealth and a San Francisco Conservative. You can find them on David's website, davidparkeressays.com, and on Amazon. So thank you so much, and look forward to our next conversation.
You too. Thank you. Bye.